Let me just say to one and all, thank you for being here today to discuss immigration reform in the state of Utah. Although the challenges surrounding the issue of illegal immigration are significant, I've asked each of you to participate in this roundtable because they are not insurmountable. Unfortunately, many of the problems we face today have been decades in the making. For too long, the federal government has failed to secure our borders and has not developed a meaningful national immigration policy. The negative impact of these failures has been compounded by the reality that the federal government has not, in large part, chosen to enforce existing immigration laws. Consequently, the number of immigrants who are in the United States illegally is creating societal challenges and costs that simply can no longer go unaddressed. Inaction by the federal government leaves individual states little choice but to enter the immigration reform dialogue. It is up to us to find innovative solutions for our unique illegal immigration problems. I'm often asked if I support the, quote, Arizona law, unquote. Let me say this. Utah is not Arizona. We are not a border state. And while our concerns may be similar in some ways, Arizona has different challenges than we have here in Utah. My purpose is to focus on what is in our state's best interest and how we as Utahns can collaborate to find appropriate solutions. I'm not as concerned about the Arizona law as I am interested in the Utah solution. As governor, I want to see our state take a thoughtful and rational approach to immigration reform. Unfortunately, this is an emotional issue that some will try to politicize to our collective detriment. This is not a time for clever sound bites or political posturing. This issue is too important for that. Instead, we must search for common ground. We cannot have misguided individuals releasing private information about people that they suspect of living in our state illegally. The list of alleged illegal immigrants that was released last week by now former government workers did not enhance the cause of immigration reform. In fact, it did just the opposite. It divided our community at a time when we need to come together. The tactics used by people who created this list are appalling and unacceptable. I've asked each of you to meet here today so that we can listen to thoughtful voices on all sides of the illegal immigration issue while avoiding the toxic rhetoric that will derail any possible progress. Accordingly, the participants for today's meeting have been chosen as representatives of different points of view on this issue. This is not an exhaustive group. We know that there are others with a desire to participate and are qualified to be seated at this table. But I am confident that we have a representative group up here today that will help us generate dialogue on this issue, not just heated debate. As a starting point, I submit some guiding principles that should be considered as we discuss immigration reform options. Number one, there must be respect for the law. The Utah solution must acknowledge that U.S. citizenship, by birth or grant, requires reverence for and adherence to the law. Second, the federal government has a responsibility to secure our borders, to enforce immigration laws, and to draft meaningful immigration policy. The federal government must, in fact, act. Three, there must be greater accountability from the private sector. Businesses must be responsible for establishing hiring practices that comply with the law to verify legal documentation of all workers. Four, the Utah solution should recognize and respect the humanity of all people. Immigration reform efforts must be fair, they must be colorblind, and they must be race neutral. 5, we must provide appropriate tools for law enforcement. The Utah solution must give law enforcement officers the ability, through through resources and training to enforce the law and to keep our communities safe. 6, we must relieve the burden on taxpayers. There are significant societal costs associated with illegal immigration that simply must be addressed. Our Utah communities and our taxpayers cannot be expected to bear this financial burden. The goal for today's meeting is to encourage you, as some of the state's key stakeholders, to really listen to each other. Listening is the first step to understanding, and I believe it will lead to finding solutions. In a moment, I'm going to ask each of you to take a minute and a half to address the group. You can say whatever you like, but I ask that you are not to take more than 90 seconds each. This arrangement will make sure that in our first hour, everyone has an opportunity to make salient comments while also having plenty of time to listen. I encourage you to refrain from trying to debate statistics and instead focus on concepts and principles. Remember, today is a time to narrow the divide, not to take advantage of it.
My name is Pamela Atkinson. I'm a community advocate. Thank you, Governor, for inviting so many of us to participate in this very important dialogue. I've had many dialogues over the last few months, particularly out in the community, and I'm tired of the lack of civility, I'm tired of the hatred, and I'm tired of the hostility. I think Utahns, the majority of Utahns are above that, and I love the fact that so many Utahns reach out and love one another and help one another regardless of race, color, religion, etc. I think that civility should play a very large role in our discussions and all discussions, whether inside this room or outside this room. Utahns are not noted for their lack of civility, so recent happenings have been a shock to many of us. I think there are positions that can be taken on all sides, and I say all sides because there's more than two sides to this problem. But I think this is the beginning of a civil dialogue that the Governor has started, and I'm anxious to learn from my colleagues all that they have to contribute and from other people out in the community. Thank you.
I'm Lane Beatty, President and CEO of the Salt Lake Chamber. We represent businesses across the state. We represent 6,100 different businesses and 1/3 of all of the employees in the entire state of Utah. It's a pleasure for me to be here, and again, Governor, thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in what we believe is a very civil way to approach a very critical issue. We realize that the Salt Lake Chamber, that this is a federal issue that has caused most of the problems that we have. We do support border security, and we will ask our federal leaders in Congress as well as here at home to continue to address it in a more positive way. We need comprehensive reform. We expect the federal delegation in Utah to be able to participate in a positive way. Utah is not a border state. We need a different solution than other states have proposed. We're absolutely confident that we can do so. We realize how emotional this is. We believe that there are many factors that can bring together very critical parts of our economy and our culture. We look forward to having a positive impact economically. Many of you know that 2 years ago we did provide a what we hoped would be a discussion part on immigration resolve in a Utah guest worker reform. We believe businesses will be responsible. We want the federal government to be responsible, and we believe that we can do a much better job than we've heard about in the press in the state of Utah to take care of our needs.